Hey, this is Matthew Ricks, and today on the Music Business Newsletter, we got an email from an artist who wants to know how do you build a community as an artist that just creates lifelong fans. But before we get started, side note, huge congratulations and shout out to my daughter Hope and the Middle Tennessee Explosion universe. My daughter Hope just hit her first home run over the fence. She's been practicing, dreaming about it, vision boarding it for like ever, and she finally did it. And I was that annoying dad. I got a little emotional and I started yelling at all the other parents saying, that's my daughter, y'all, like they didn't know. And I just want to say congratulations to her and also to Coach Adrian Garcia after she hit the home run. He's like, I better get a Facebook post. Coach, you're getting one better. You're getting a shout out in the Music Business Newsletter. I just want to thank him for the investment he's made with my daughter and being a man of his word and having integrity. And if you want to be like yours truly, you can get yourself some Middle Tennessee Explosion merch. You can be like me. It's going to look great on you. But once again, shout out to my daughter, Hope. I love you. I'm proud of you. And to the Middle Tennessee Explosion and Coach Adrian, thank you. Get your merch so you can cheer for them all season long as they destroy the opponent on the softball field. Now for the email. He says, hey, Matthew, I keep hearing the phrase build a community thrown around in the music industry, and I'm realizing I don't actually know what people mean when they say that. He goes, I'm an independent artist in my early 30s. I've been releasing music for a while now, and I have a modest following, a few thousand on Instagram, a couple of thousand monthly listeners on Spotify, and a small group of people who come to shows when I play locally. On paper, it looks like progress. So you use generic terms, few thousand, couple of thousand, small group. So I don't know what a few thousand means. Is that 5,000? Is it 20,000? Is it 2,000? And then you got a couple of thousand. Is that 10,000, 1,000? Small group of people. Are we talking 24? Are we talking 58? I don't know. You don't tell us, but we can only speculate a little bit. He says, on paper, it looks like progress. Well, it is progress. It depends on, did you get all of that in the first year and now you've been stagnant for the last 5? Then that's not progress. Have you gotten it all in the last year? Massive progress. He says, but when I zoom out, I'm not sure I have a community. I have numbers, I have followers, I have listeners. I don't know how many of those people actually care enough to stick around. I wouldn't count followers because I think I got like close to 6,000 followers on my personal Instagram. I know the Matrix Minute has like 10,000, but a lot of those people have been following for Matrix Minute it's been 10 years. Well, how many of those people are dead? Or how many of those people got locked out of their accounts? How many of those people just gave up social media, created a new account, but they're still counted as a follower? I never count followers, subscribers as progress, as momentum. I always use, if you're an artist, I would use Spotify monthly listeners. Far more important than your Instagram follow number, because also people buy followers and they can inflate it and it's not a real number. Most of the engagement feels shallow. People like posts, skip through stories, add a song to a playlist and disappear. Bro, they're adding a song to a playlist. Like that's a good movement right there. Now, the viewing the stories, you got people who death scroll, and what's always funny is like, I could have 2,300 people look at my story. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. But if I'm expecting one person in particular to look at it and they don't, none of it else matters. The 2,300 never matters because I'm looking for that one. So yeah, people liking posts, skipping through stories. I mean, it feels good, but it doesn't mean anything. People adding your song to a playlist, that's big. That is not only big for you as an artist, but it's also big for you on an algorithm standpoint with Spotify. That means people are actually taking the time. I mean, there's really 3 things that count when you're talking about your music on Spotify outside of plays. One of them is when they add it to their library. 2 is when they add it to a playlist. And 3 is when they share it. You get those things going, Spotify recognizes that you actually have fans who care. And that's actually what moves a song into, the playlist or the release radar. And they move it up in the Spotify radio, is that engagement, that movement. So don't, poo-poo on people adding your song to a playlist. That's actually really good. He says, when I announce a show or a release, only a fraction of people respond. When I ask a question or try to start a conversation, it mostly falls flat. Okay, so here, your shows or your releases. Well, I don't know what you want when you announce a release, because you're saying, again, people adding it to their playlist. So that is better than them responding to your release announcement. A show depends on how many shows you're playing. You know, if you are, say you live in Mobile, Alabama, and every Friday night you're playing in Mobile and you keep announcing shows every Friday night, people aren't going to be excited anymore. That's the one hiccup that a lot of independent artists have, is that they're supposed to play out all the time to build a fan base, but you keep going back to the same well week after week or every 2 weeks, hoping those same people come, and they're not obligated to, or you don't do anything different, or they're just tired of seeing you, or something more important's going on. When you ask a question and nobody responds, yeah, that sucks. I wouldn't do it. Like, I do not, my personal, the Matthew Ricks account, there is some music stuff. There's some business stuff in there. Like if I do an interview or promoting a release I'm working on, but for me, it's just kind of more like dad friend life, you know, like if, you know, I'm at the softball field. But even then I don't really post unless I know what I'm getting back in return. So I'm never kind of like shocked. So I'll never be like, what should I have for lunch? And then nobody responds. People would respond, but it probably wouldn't be as many as I want. And so I just don't do it. A lot of times artists will be like, what song you want me to release next? And then nobody responds and it just looks really small. So I would not ask questions. For you to start a conversation, you don't set what the conversation starter is. You go find them on their page and you start the conversation that way. Hey, I hear you got golden doodles. I love golden doodles. They're so hyper and crazy. Golden doodles are awesome, but they are hyper and crazy. So instead of you being like, come to me, peasants, and talk to me, you go to them with what they're interested in, which does take more time. And you're fishing them out. They're not fishing you out. So if you have a fragile ego, it does suck. He goes, so I'm stuck wondering, what's the real difference between an audience and a community? I mean, an audience is people who, I would say for me, an audience is just passive. I think radio listeners are audiences. I think Spotify listeners are community. I think, if you want to put it in YouTube terms, I think YouTube short viewers or audiences, people who watch long form videos, are community. Because it's easy come, easy goes. It just kind of flies by quickly. So I would say that's the difference. An audience is going to be somebody who's going to be passive. A community is going to be passionate about what you're doing. He says, how do you build something deeper without forcing it or being fake? Consistency. You reaching out, you know, in sales, you got to do cold calling. You got to pick up the phone and just cold call people and get hung up and get cussed out and everything. You got to do the same as an artist when you're getting started. You got to send messages to people and they're going to be like, what do you want? But then you're going to get those people who are like, oh my gosh, you're emailing me. How cool. Let me go check your music out. I love you. I want your babies. Like, it happens. It just happens. He says, is community built online, offline, or both? Both. Because you build a community online of passionate people on streaming services who listen to your music, share it, try to introduce their friends to it. And then, offline, in real world terms, they're going to your shows, they're buying your merch, all of that stuff. If you're building a community online, you got to figure out how to transfer that to offline, into the real world. And what do I mean by that? You might go, well, I live in Kansas and I got people in South Africa. How do I get them offline and get them into the real world? Get them to buy merch. You know, get them from just passively scrolling to get them to do something that invests their time and money. And that's how you know you've transferred the community into the real world. Back in the day when we just launched the Matrix Minute and we were out doing events all over the world, you know, there was some wishful thinking that we're doing 20,000 plays a day. Well, we should be able to sell out, 20,000 room places wherever we went. And it's like, no, because those are people who are just passively listening. They're hoping that I would tell them, here's the 5 steps to get a record deal by tomorrow. The people who showed up, the people who bought tickets, the people who played full out, those were the people that, even 12 years later, I still talk to, because I took them from offline into the real world. And that's what you got to do as well. You got to get them off of Instagram swiping or just clicking like and buying merch or coming to a show. And until you get that, then your community is pretty fragile and probably pretty unreliable. He says, and at what point should an artist stop chasing growth and start focusing on connection instead? You don't ever stop chasing growth. But it does depend on what your definition of growth is. So if your definition of growth is 1 million followers on Instagram, but you don't really care if they listen to the music, you just want to have a huge Instagram number and you just want to have a couple of videos of you dancing going viral, that's a different type of growth. If your growth is, I know platinum artists, like personally know platinum artists who they sit when their next release and they're trying to figure out how to make it better, how to make it bigger, how to get more fans to listen to it, how to sell more tickets. You never stop worrying about the growth. The minute you stop worrying about the growth is probably because you're dying. But then how to start focusing on connection. Connection happens by you being accessible to the fans, you being able to meet them where they're at. Most artists screw up because they want the fans to meet them where they're at. Come tell me how great my music is, listen to my music. Like, no, you go and invest in their time. You go and ask people what's going on in their life. You take the time to care, to be a normal human being. It's shocking what the results are. He says, I'm not trying to obsess over metrics, but it's hard when every platform pushes numbers as the measure of success. Don't buy into it. We got some videos that released on YouTube recently, and they've done 40 plays. And thank you to you guys. We got 3,000 subscribers. So what does that mean? Was 3,000 subscribers all collectively not interested? No. It means the algorithm didn't push it out. So what do you do when the algorithm doesn't push it out? You keep going. You keep being consistent. You keep releasing. And that's why you don't follow numbers. Because if you live for that dopamine hit of when the graph goes up, you crash when it goes down. And that's just not, it's an addiction, and it's not fair to you. And it's not fair to your fans that you're hyped one day and then you're sad one day because you're on the roller coaster. So don't be on the roller coaster of numbers. Be aware of your numbers, know your numbers, but until you get a baseline, until you know what your baseline is, like Matrix Minute, we know what our baseline is. For every release, it's 100,000. Anything under 100,000 is a failure. Anything above 100,000 streams, it's a success. But that's because it's been 12 years of putting out Matrix Minutes, and we know what the line is now. Most artists, they put something out once or twice and they try to get a line, but the algorithm is still at that point way too unpredictable for you to be able to get a read. So you just got to be consistent and keep pushing stuff out there. He says, at the same time, I don't want to wake up years from now with a big following that doesn't actually support anything I do. That's why you got to transfer them from offline into the real world. However you have to do it. Ticket sales, merchandise. If email lists were still a thing, which I don't recommend anybody doing an email list because it's just, nobody checks it. You got to do something to get them from just stop scrolling to pay attention. One of the things you could do that could be like a metric for you to get them like to see what your community is. It's probably going to be really bad at first. Do a live stream on Instagram and see how many people tune in and see how long you hold people. If you do an hour-long live stream and you have 10 people and those 10 people stayed the entire time and they're not your relatives or your significant other, but they're actually like genuine fans, then I would be honest with yourself and say, my solid fan base is at 10. Like solid. Cool. This number sounds small. Right. But now you can build off of it. He says, I'm not looking for hacks or engagement. I just want to understand what is sustainable in the music industry. He says, and what do artists look like? What does it look like for an artist who isn't aiming for mainstream fame but wants a real career? So you don't want to be a pop star, but you want to make money. I dig that. I would just say you got to start small. I mean, I don't know how many shows you're doing, but if you're doing shows and nobody cares, slow down your shows or find a different market to start dominating. You might have worn out your market. If you are, I'd stop asking questions that you're not getting any responses on, because at this point, a lot of times artists do that and fans respond because they want the artist to notice them. But if it's very small, your fans aren't going to care. Don't try to get into the clickbait era, which I see artists doing, because it is such an easy layup where they start talking about politics because they know they're going to get engagement from that. Yeah, it's a short-term boost, but at the end of the day, what happens then is you're branded forever. Like and if you live in America, it is not a good time to be doing politics, because you will alienate half of the country. And as an artist, your job is to get as many people to listen to your music as possible. And so it is rewarding in the beginning. You get that dopamine hit talking about politics, but you'll end up hating yourself for it. He says, any perspective you have on this would help. Thanks, Bob. Bob, I hope I gave you some advice, but good luck. The show thing, scale back. If you're doing a lot of shows in your town and nobody cares, stop playing so many shows. Or if you do play shows, don't promote it. So you give your fans a break from your promotion on shows and go in knowing that there's probably not going to be a lot of people there, but that gives you better opportunities to make new fans from the people that are there. Try to get your fans off of the internet and into the real world, buying a shirt, buying a poster, coming out to a show, and just have fun doing it. Like, I think so much we get so worried about the business of this whole thing. We forget that art is fun and art is expressive, and you should do the same. So thanks for the email. If you have a question on the music industry that you'd like for me to answer, just go to MatthewRicks.com, click submit your question, give me as many details as possible, and we will answer it here on the channel. I am Matthew Ricks, and until next time, I will talk to you later.